So, Joey, where are you? Hi.
Okay, so we digressed a tiny bit when doing this question, but we mostly stayed on task. So a lot of the things we realized is that things can be made much more efficient and kept. I mean, instead of taking away a mini school, the space could be utilized during after-school programs, for instance. And a lot of the other things that we found out is that technology is really something that isn't utilized at all in our school system and could be to save many of these programs. Instead of sort of prioritizing which ones we want to get rid of, we can make them all more efficient. We also discussed how a cap made on class sizes would be beneficial that was actually followed. I mean, technically it's 30 kids that are only allowed to be on class sizes right now, but I know my school has 30, 35 kids, often more, in most of our classes. We were also talking about support for online classes. Right now, almost every teacher disagrees with when you suggest taking an online course. They say it's detrimental to learning, and they say you'll have trouble later on in school years. When if teachers actually encourage these courses, not only would our class sizes be reduced, but people could learn at their own pace, which is beneficial in many other ways as well. We also discussed how a cooperative mentality could be taken on by teachers instead of a competitive one. Right now, teachers often don't share notes with each other, write up different tests, mark different homework. When if they took on sort of a cooperative role and realized that they were all one group, a lot of their effort, energy, and time could be saved by sharing their resources with each other. We also talked about a switch to open source software, and we were talking to many of the trustees about how a huge amount of money right now is going to Microsoft, both for their Word program and their Vista, or XP in our case, program. And it's totally ridiculous when there's free alternatives that could be used across the entire board that are much more compatible with most other people's computing needs. And we talked about some of the interesting benefits that staff got, including cell phone bills, which are paid for by the school board, and how those might not be entirely necessary to be only paid for by the school board, and they can be shared and put into the teacher's tuition. And that's it.
Basically, the point is that there are empty spaces in your schools right now, and what we're prioritization here is student learning. And if you lay off teachers, you're going to have more students in one classroom. Whereas if you close a school, that ratio isn't really going to change. That's the basic point.
Thank you, Eric.
Hi everyone, my name is Adrian. Nice to meet you. So our question was, what steps should the VSB take to ensure quality education for students? Okay, well let's re-examine what the courses we take exactly, such as Planning 10. I'm sure all of you guys have taken Planning 10. Personally, and I've talked to many people at my school and other schools, Planning 10 doesn't seem to exactly be a proper use of our time, or at least not a prioritization. So basically, for those who are unaware of Planning 10 curriculum, this includes personality tests, other things like, cruising on the internet and stuff like that. Anyways, like there are useful things like T4 slip introduction to prepare us for income taxes and stuff like that. There's stuff like, what else is there? I guess like prepare a resume. This is all constructive stuff. This is all positive stuff. Nonetheless, this is stuff we can learn from our parents. We can ask teachers at our schools. We don't necessarily have to spend an eighth of our time, which is like our full course load, right? We have to spend a whole course. I know some schools at Lord Byng, for example, they do it on their collaborative days. I guess that's a more effective use than actually having it as a part of the on-time schedule. Another thing is quality of education, back to the topic. Just because you're in class doesn't necessarily mean that you're having the highest quality level of education. As Joey mentioned earlier, there are many chances for online courses. For example, I'm taking English 12 online. People wonder about that. You're like, isn't that a really important class for discussions, that sort of thing? I do have discussions. I have them online. I have them, I post points, and so does everyone else in the class. This includes people, not just in high school, but people who are catching up on their learning who may not be certified. as a grade 12 student from other countries, that sort of thing. So they may be 19 years old, but they missed out certain requirements. So in fact, you can even get a more well-rounded education by doing things online because you can interact with people who are of different ages, not just your own age. Yeah, and you're not just limited to 30 people in a class as everyone is limited to in a physical class schedule. So yeah, that's the huge thing. It's online courses. We're pushing for that. I mean, we have technology to do that. There's hundreds of thousands of open source software available. I've done the research. Ubuntu, Linux, easy operating systems are free too. We don't have to spend money on Windows or Microsoft Word, that sort of thing. I frankly think it's ridiculous that we're spending that money on that because there's so much free open source software that we can implement. And we don't have to implement it once as well. And then it would just be integrated into our systems for the rest of the time. And the advantage to open source software, for those who don't know, is that if you have, if there's a development in the software, it can be, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can download it, is that correct? Yes, you can download it and it'll be a free update. You don't have to pay money. And there are programs ranging from something as simple as graphic design all the way to full management systems of like something that can replace PC ESIS, for example. Apparently that costs a lot of money. It costs money. I mean, the fact that it costs money is somewhat puzzling to me because there's this open source software that has so much more. So I guess that's basically the end of my rant.